The sun had barely risen when old Haru hurled his straw hat across the yard and growled, "Useless thing!" That was the morning he decided he'd had enough. Enough of frayed edges, enough of slipping brims, enough of a hat that seemed determined to fall off his head at the worst possible moments. But he had no idea that before the day was over, that same hat would decide whether he walked home or didn't walk at all. Haru lived on a small patch of farmland carved out beside a wide, shimmering valley. In summer, the heat didn't just settle, it pressed, it clung, it crawled into your bones, and this season had been the worst yet. Still, Haru was stubborn enough to believe he could outwork the sun itself. By mid-morning, the light grew harsh and white. The fields turned into a mirror of heat, bending the air. Haru wiped his forehead, sweat pouring like he'd cracked open a spring. His straw hat lay abandoned on the doorstep behind him, where he'd tossed it after declaring he'd rather work bareheaded than keep wrestling with it. But every few minutes, he found himself glancing back toward the house, as if something tugged at the edges of his mind. Maybe just for today, a small voice whispered. He ignored it. The hours dragged and the sun climbed higher. Haru's breath grew shallow, his vision softened around the edges. The world took on a strange, wavering glow as if the fields were underwater. Still he pressed on. "I've worked hotter days," he muttered. But his legs told another story. They trembled. His hands began to shake. A ringing sound crept into his ears, soft at first, then louder. At last he stopped, leaning on his hoe, blinking hard. The ground beneath him tilted just enough to make the world feel wrong. That's when he saw it. Across the yard, the forgotten straw hat had rolled a little in the wind. Just a few feet, but just far enough that it seemed to be facing him, watching him, waiting, as if asking, "Do you still think you don't need me?" Haru staggered toward the house, not out of pride anymore, but out of something closer to fear. He felt the sun clawing at the back of his neck, searing, relentless. His heartbeat thudded unevenly, his steps faltered. He reached the doorstep. His fingers brushed the hat's brittle brim, and in that moment, just touching it, he felt the heat ease. Not vanish, but relent. A single breath returned to him, clear and steady. He slipped the hat on. Instantly, shade wrapped around him like a cool hand guiding him back from the edge. The dizziness ebbed. His knees steadied. The ringing faded into silence. A simple straw hat, mocked, cursed, thrown away, had become his lifeline in the span of a breath. He sank down on the shaded step, letting the breeze thread through the woven straw. And for the first time in years, he whispered, "Thank you." By evening, Haru hung the hat carefully by the door. Not out of obligation, but out of gratitude. He realized then that the things we take for granted are often the first to save us. And sometimes the wisest thing we can do is listen before we learn the hard way. Thank you for listening. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to help the channel grow.